Hello, everybody. It's me. I'm here with the books that I read in September. And I have to say, humble brag, this is totally a humble brag. I managed to finish 13 books this month, which is crazy. And not all of them were like full-length novels. I'll get into that, but I am impressed. Quite a few of them were like over 500 pages. Oh, maybe. There was like one over 500 pages and then two that were like just almost 500. As far as my stats go this month, like I said, I finished 13 books altogether. And I read a total of 4,046 pages, which is fucking astronomical. The average for that is about 135 a day. So altogether there were 9, why am I doing this? This is not 9. 9 adult books, and 4 of them were like young adults. There were 9 full-length novels, 3 graphic novels, and 1 audiobook. As far as genres go, there were 6 that were sci-fi. That is thanks to the Tome Infinity and Beyond Readathon. I think I'd only read like 1 or 2 sci-fi books this year. And that's only because I read the Red Rising series. Like, I don't usually get into sci-fi that often, so I'm glad because I picked up some really good books this month, and that is thanks to the Tome Infinity and Beyond Readathon. Okay, so there were also 3 thrillers, 2 horror books, a historical fiction, and a fantasy. So this is, I really kind of spread my eggs into a lot of baskets this month. Is that a saying? It is now. Okay, so years published. Let's see, the oldest book I read was published in 1986. Then we have 2004, 2009, 2012, 2 published in 2015, 2 published in 2016, 2 published in 2017, 1 published in 2018, and 2 2019 releases. Bam. For star ratings, I had 2 1.5 star books, 1 2-star book, 1 3.5 star book, 4 4-star books, 2 4.5 star books, and 3 5-star books. So even though I had a couple that were not very good at all this month, I had a lot that were very good. So it kind of evens out. My average for the whole month is 3.73 stars. So right off the bat, there are 2 books here that I read for trope episodes later. I think I'm going to take a break from those until next year. I'm going to start out big in January, and I think I'm only going to do them probably every 3 months instead of every other month, because I definitely don't read all the, I'm like scrambling the month that I want to get this video together to like finish the books that I want to read for the video, which sometimes, you know, is just, makes it not as fun, which is like not the point of that, right? Like the point is to like have fun reading things and talking about them. So if I give myself an extra month in between and give myself a few months before my next one, that's going to help immensely. So there are 2 there for that. I also am a little more than halfway through, but not quite finished, with Severance by Ling Ma. This is, man, I don't know where this is going. It's like post-apocalyptic, and it like goes between 2 timelines, one before this epidemic called the Shen fever happened, and one a couple months after it's happened, and like, you know, the population is pretty sparse, and it's very much a survivalistic thing happening right now. And like, I really like the timeline that's like current with her, the main character, Candace, at like the, you know, aftermath of the Shen fever, and I'm not, like, I don't dislike the timeline of her before the epidemic. It's like a few years and like leading up to like a little bit of her childhood too. And it's just not as exciting as the current day timeline. So it's been a little slow going for me so far. Hopefully that'll pick up. It's not a very long book, so I don't know. Okay, I did not count this into my book total because this is technically only half of a book, but I finished the first part of Words of Radiant by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archives. It's taken me for frickin' ever to get through it, which is stupid because I like the book. There's so many things that I get really excited for when I'm reading, so it's like easy sometimes for me to put down a book and like forget about it because I'm on to the next best thing. But this is good so far. I really like it. So the first book that I counted towards all my stats for the month is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is an adult thriller, and it is about a woman. What's her name? Rowan, that's right. A woman named Rowan who is taking a nannying position, and the family that she is nannying for, or trying to nanny for, is very well off. They live in this like weird, like, it's like this rustic old countryside house, except for like the back half of it is all like futuristic and very modern and like almost industrial, and it is a smart house, so that plays a lot into what happens in this book, you know, the thriller aspect. So the family that she's nannying for, the parents seem very well put together, but it seems like the children are having, I don't know, some weird behavioral issues. And, you know, she's just trying to get a good job. And, like, this is, like, a crazy good job. So, I don't even want to tell you, like, the plot because it's a thriller. And I feel like if you decide to read this, you should go into it almost blind. And, like, that might be because that's just, like, how I like to do it. But I liked this. This was an almost perfect book an almost perfect thriller. I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm not even sure what it could have done better, but I think maybe the beginning was just a little too slow going for me. But it was very, very good. Definitely worth the read if you are looking for another thriller. I really, really liked the technology aspect to, you know, yeah, it just made it spooky. Next, we have Warcross by Marie Lu. And this is a story about a girl named Amika, and she is really down on her luck. She lives in basically what is like a slum in a futuristic New York City. The whole world has been kind of taken storm by the invention of these virtual reality glasses that were made specifically for this game called Warcross, but it's kind of become a staple for every aspect of life. You can see the names of anyone you're walking past on the street. You can see the names of buildings. It's like you can pay people in like the virtual cash that this game, this world has invented, and you know, things like that. And so the game itself is called Warcross, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of like Super Smash Brothers Capture the Flag. It reminded me of, like, there are power-ups you can use, but you're on a team and you're trying to get the other team's like special artifact, and you know, that's how you win. You have life, you have, you know, health points and all that. And so Amika, she's trying really hard to pay her rent that month, and she tries a hack that she's never used before during a professional game of Warcross. And she tries to use the hack to steal a power-up out of somebody's inventory, and she's in like a stealth mode on her virtual character, and as soon as she uses the hack and steals something from someone's inventory, her character, everyone's able to see her. So instead of getting like arrested or getting in trouble for doing this, the creator of Warcross calls her and offers her a job. The rest of the book is, you know, good. I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. And I think I will continue with this series. This wasn't even one where it's like, I didn't think I was going to up until the end. It's like, I knew that I wanted to read the second book, you know, right away. There was one character whose like identity is a mystery to us until like the very, very end of the book. And I kind of guessed that early on, but that's okay. I still liked it. I still liked it despite that. So this was good. Next, I have Blackbirds by Chuck Wendig. This is the first book in the Miriam Black series. And this is about Miriam Black, obviously. And she's someone who can see how someone dies by touching them. And obviously that's affected her full fucking life. Like, she doesn't want to be able to do that, and maybe she uses drugs and alcohol to kind of like forget that she sees how everyone she touches dies, which has to be like the fucking worst. So, she gets picked up by a trucker named Lewis. That's his name, right? Yes, Lewis. And she touches his hand and discovers that the way he dies, he's like screaming her name. So she's like, that's weird, and I don't know why, but I need to figure out why, because I don't want to be the actual cause of this guy's death. That's the premise of this book. And I really liked it. I ended up giving this 4 stars as well. I thought it was super fast paced. It was interesting. There was not a dull second in this book. And this is definitely a series I'm going to continue with. Next, this was a reread for me. This is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I plan on reading this and The Wicked King, the second book in this, before The Queen of Nothing, the third book, the conclusion of this series, comes out in November. So this is a reread for me. Like I said, I gave it 5 stars. It is about this young woman named Jude. Her and her 2 sisters are abducted from their family and brought to live in fairyland. And she is obviously a human, which opens her up to a lot of mistreatment by the Fae, because they just like really don't give a shit about humans. And why should they? Humans are like tiny bugs to them, tiny insignificant things. And so a lot of it's her struggling with that, her struggling to find her identity, because while she doesn't fit in fairyland, she definitely does not fit in the mortal world either. There's some political stuff going on, and of course some really angsty hate to love stuff going on, which I am such trash for. If it's done right. If it's done right. Because it has to be believable. You have to hate the characters too, otherwise, like, who cares if they fall in love with each other. So yeah, this is great if you like fantasy, if you like, of course, if you don't mind fantasy with some romance in it, because this definitely feels like young adult fantasy, you know what I mean, when you read it. And that's not a bad thing. There just is, you know, usually a pretty clear feeling between adult fantasy and YA fantasy. And this is YA fantasy. And it is so good. And I can't wait to reread The Wicked King. Okay. What else do we have here? Next, I have the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is another book I read for the Tome Infinity and Beyond Readathon. And this was so good. And I'm not even really sure how to explain this to you. There's like 3 timelines that we're following, and it's not always clear when they take place. At first I thought that they were concurrent, but they are not. I don't know, that's not a spoiler, it's just like how it is. And you're following 3 young women. One's a child, one is younger, and one is old enough to have had like children and established a family. And yeah, there's just so much shit going on. But this takes place in a world where they have had all sorts of crazy natural disasters. And when it's like they call them like seasons. So, and that doesn't mean like summer, fall, spring, you know, it's like seasons that can last years with these natural disasters going on. Like they talk about the acid season, seasons of like famine, and seasons where it's just like pitch black for years, and all sorts of crazy, like unexplainable natural disasters. And this takes place like on our Earth, but it's not clear like how far beyond our civilization this takes place, you know what I mean? Because there's also these people called Origins, and they have the ability to kind of like manipulate the Earth, and they are really just, people are scared of them, people hate them, they are murdered just for it's nothing that they can control. And some of them are like rounded up and brought to this school where they are taught kind of how to hone their skills, because Origins, their ability is just so innate that sometimes they hurt people just because they have, you know, if they have an emotional flare, they might accidentally kill someone, kind of a thing. I don't know. I feel like my explanation really fucking sucks. But it's a very complex world. However, this was so easy to get into, and there was some slang that was, you know, I just didn't know at first. And at first it was hard to like get a good feel of the Earth. But N.K. Jemisin's writing is so beautiful. It's easy to read, despite like not always knowing what's going on. And I don't know, it was so very good. It was so good. Next is Now I Rise by Kiersten White. This is the 2nd book in the Conqueror saga. This follows Lada Dragwaila as she like moves on from her childhood and the place where she grew up in the Ottoman Empire, and she tries to take back her homeland of Wallachia. It's a sequel. I can't tell you that much about it, but it was so good. It's just kind of amazing how Kiersten White managed to give these characters so much life, especially being that it's in a long ago country. Yeah, so she lives in San Diego. So obviously she did not grow up in Turkey or Transylvania, you know? So it's amazing how she's pulled these real characters out of history and kind of given them their own story. Obviously not all of it is historically accurate, but these are characters that did exist. I mean, except for Lada, she's supposed to be Vlad, or who Vlad was, you know, Vlad Tepes. So it is so good, and I can't wait. Like at the end of this book, I had goosebumps for like 3 minutes. It was crazy. I could not control like having a physical reaction to like what I was reading, which is so, I don't know, so crazy. It's such a great book. I gave this 5 stars. Next, I read Illuminae by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. This is a YA sci-fi book, and it's in a really cool format. It was fun to read because, I mean, well, I was really just like not showing you any of that. It's hard to do this, but as you can see, it's like told in like dossiers and like classified files and like IM messages and stuff like that. And it's a story of, man, what is this a fucking story of? I guess that was one of my problems with it, is like you don't really find out the real plot. You don't really get to the meat of it for a long time. And basically it's like you are reading these files that a hacker group almost has like hacked. Files that somebody doesn't want anyone to know about, and they're files concerning a small planet, a mining planet called Karenza, right? I think, if I'm getting the names wrong, let me know. Or don't, it's fine. It's just a book. A small planet called Karenza gets attacked by, it's a mining planet, and it gets attacked by like the competitors for the company that the mining planet is, you know, all those people work for. And there are some survivors. They get like picked up by 2 separate airships, and while on those airships, all of a sudden there's like this illness that's running about, and it's making people kind of crazy. And also one of the ships has this like AI thing running it, and they had to shut the AI thing off because it started attacking citizens of the ship who weren't following its orders. And so I don't know, it's kind of complicated. It has these like 2 plot lines that like don't really meet up until the very end, and sometimes that works, but I'm not really sure if it worked in this because they just didn't seem very cohesive. Like the authors made it work, it just wasn't very cohesive, you know what I mean? So I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. The format made it fun and easy to read. The plot was just kind of though, and like the characters were just, I just didn't give a shit about them. There was a young girl named Katie, and then her like ex-boyfriend who she still loves, called Ezra Mason, and he was just a chode. Like, he's so annoying, you guys. He was so annoying, and a lot of the dialogue between them definitely seemed like dialogue that a middle-aged person would think teens talk like. Does that make sense? It didn't, I don't know. There's a lot of this book that's like, I could have just done without that. I think the end did pique my interest again though. It's like they fucking got me, because now I want to read this second book, even though it's just because they like uncovered like a tiny little corner of this mystery that's apparently gonna happen in the second book, or it's like this character that they kind of talked about, and then you find out, I don't know, that they're connected with all this somehow, and it's like, oh fucking, now I have to read the second one, even though I don't really want to, but I just like can't help it. I don't know. I give this 3.5 stars. It was okay. It wasn't bad. I don't know. I'm not super jazzed about it. Now I have the second volume of Locke and Key. This one is called Head Games, and I gave this 4.5 stars. It kind of just continues along the plot line, you know. It's about these siblings. They have to live in their father's like childhood home, and there are all these strange keys that unlock strange things. And I liked this one. I just didn't like it as much as the first one, but it was still good. Next, this is a graphic novel adaptation of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is illustrated by Pete Katz. Pete the Cat. And I don't know. I gave this 1.5 stars. It's just like, and I guess, how could you do this the right way? But I don't think any graphic novel adaptation of a novel is going to be able to be super great, because they're just going to be able to take like the very thin film off the top of the cup of milk as far as the story goes. You know what I mean? So it's like very diluted, and I don't know, the dialogue is just so strange because it's like kind of old-timey, but like kind of paraphrased old-timey. I know that doesn't make sense. I think you would understand if you tried to read it though. And like the illustrations were fine, but they were nothing very fantastic. And I feel really shitty saying that because I can't draw for shit, and this person obviously can, but it's just nothing spectacular. It was like somebody giving me a drunk history of the story of Frankenstein. It's just like, okay. It's like so dumbed down that, like, do you think I'm fucking stupid? I don't know. Maybe that's supposed to be geared towards younger audiences, but I don't know. This brings me to the second to last book I have to talk to you about. This is Monstress, Volume 1 by Marjorie and Takeda. This is one of the most beautiful, one of the most beautifully illustrated stories I've ever seen in my fucking life. It is beautiful. The plotline's kind of hard to explain on here too, because I'm not really sure what all the motivations for the characters are yet. But very basically, this main character here, her name's Meka, she has a demon inside of her. And it's something that's been passed down through her bloodline. But as she finds out, she's the first one, I don't know, ever, or like in known memory, who has been strong enough to like let the demon come out of her body, kind of. It's not like it comes out, but it like morphs her body, you know what I mean? In this first volume, I'm not sure we get all the details needed for it to like make sense quite yet, but despite all that, I still really like this, and I gave this 4 stars. Like I said, this is so beautiful, and like, even if maybe you don't like the story, like the illustrations are enough to just almost take your breath away. It's beautiful, very creative, and it's like steampunky and just gorgeous. The last thing I read was an audiobook by Cavan Scott called Dooku, and this was like supposed to be the origin story of Count Dooku from Star Wars, and I just like, I think part of it is that my reading of it was a little bit broken up because it was an audiobook. It's only an audiobook, so you won't find a physical copy of it. It's an audio drama with a full cast, and I don't know if I really like full cast audiobooks. Is that weird? Like, I feel like they're too dramatized. There's that. I also like had to check it out twice to finish it because I really like lost interest halfway through probably. So I know it was like, oh yeah, what the fuck was going on here? So I might have missed some details, but like, I really just am still not sure why he became a bad guy. Like, I don't think that any of the stuff that, any of the history that they gave about like what happened in his life constitutes like becoming a Sith when he was trained to be a Jedi. I don't know. That one I ended up giving 2 stars too. That's what I read. This video is incredibly long. I'm so sorry. I have this thing where I just can't fucking stop talking. But I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about these books. Also, like, there were quite a few of them this month. That's it though. That's all I have for you. Thank you for watching, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, let me know if you've read any of these, if you've liked them, if you've hated them. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Okay.